Yeah, I don't think we're going to take that on the road.
I mean, the band may not be there.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe not. I was thinking about the name if we did have a band, the Miracles. Yeah. Somebody told me that was already taken.
Already taken. I don't think you're going to have to worry about naming a band anytime soon.
No, thank you.
So nice reception for Petr Petrov, 32-year-old. Will be facing Diaz here, 10 rounds with the very capable Jack Reese.
Habla español, ¿sí? Okay.
You know, Reese turns to Petrov and says, "Habla español, sí." He's a Russian who speaks fluent Spanish as he's made his professional career in Madrid. So a luxury for Reese, who works here in California and is bilingual.
You know, we just had a fight. I'm not wishing for the same thing, but I must do my job and point out that we just had a fight with headbutts and cuts, and Diaz has been cut over his right eye by head clashes in 3 of his last 4 fights. Matter of fact, he had a technical draw from a head clash in his last fight. He was cut over the right eye. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to predict that Diaz gets cut.
I like your prediction about a knockout better.
Yeah, I do too. And if Diaz does get cut, it's going to be over the right eye, where there's plenty of scar tissue there from previous head clashes. Petrov has been cut from head clashes too, so he's no stranger to a little billy goat. Diaz knocked out in 2 of his last 4 fights. That's not a good way to go in. You don't need Teddy Atlas to tell you that. Matter of fact, worse than that, Diaz has been knocked out 7 times.
Stop.
And then the other recent story is what happened to Petrov, the 11-month layoff. Hank Lundy not making weight for a scheduled fight back in mid-January that was going to be on our air.
Again, I'm going to look.
Is that a knockdown?
I'm going to count it.
Jack's counting that as a knockdown. Off balance, and a punch landed. Glove touched. We'll take a look at it in just a little bit.
I think the punch might have landed around the shoulder, but not really obviously an area that would do any impact or damage to really wobble the legs of anyone. But technically, punch lands, guy goes down.
That's the rule.
That could be the rule.
Anything but the bottom of your feet. Punch lands. Anything but the bottom of your feet touch that canvas. No other way to rule it.
Well, not shocking that Petrov's getting a slow start. 10.5 months since his last fight. He's been inactive. So Diaz comes out there a little hot, a little faster. Maybe steals around. Eventually,
here comes Petrov.
the cream will rise to the top, and
Diaz holds on, and Jack Reese separates him.
I said in the opening that I thought there'd be knockouts. I have not been truthful so far. See if I can be redeemed in this main event, and Petrov can redeem me with the
Petrov, oh, nice right uppercut. He's dominating the final minute of this first round.
And it will be with the right hand. Whether it's the right uppercut or it's the straight right hand inside one of those wide left hooks of Diaz.
Good, strong surge to finish this first round by Petrov. Short break, then we'll show you that knock.
Take a look at the supposed knockdown. Really shouldn't have been a knockdown. You see a little push there. It's more of a shove. See if we can. Now you're going to see a little bit of a good, clean punch by Petrov. That right hand was used as a distractor. The right hand goes out on the side a little bit, takes the eyes of Diaz off to the side, and then the left hand clear lane to get in. But that was a punch. We thought it might have been on the shoulder. It was more of a push, shove on the shoulder. Petrov was off balance. Look, we have the benefit of knowing that that was not a knockdown. Reese wasn't in the best position. He couldn't see if the punch scored clean or if it was a shove. It was a shove, but he saw a punch landing. He saw a guy go down. I understand what he was judging on. but that was not a knockdown, and I'm scoring a 10-9 for Diaz. I don't care. I mean, Petrov dominated the round.
The last minute of that round was absolutely dominated by Petrov.
I'm using common sense. Talk about headbutts. There's
one right there.
There was one right there. Reese jumped right in and said, hey.
Expecting that forehead.
You know, that was a head clash. He looked to see if there was a cut, so he would have to say it. There's that bolo punch from Petrov. We can look for it. He likes to... Kid Gamaliel made that punch famous many years ago. When he would throw that bolo uppercut. He was a great fighter, Kid Gamaliel. And Petrov likes to use that little version of the bolo punch with his right hand.
I want to engage you a little more in the conversation of how you scored that first round, because I have no problem, if I'm sitting ringside judging, of dismissing that knockdown, knowing it was ineffective, didn't really play a role, and seeing how much damage was done by Petrov in the final minute there. I would have no problem giving that round. I don't care about that knockdown to Petrov there, or an even round, but to Petrov there. You went which direction?
I went in the direction where I just made it 10-9 Petrov.
I agree with that, Teddy. I completely agree with that. He dominated the last minute. Diaz was hurt and effective, and the knockdown is inconsequential to me.
You know, we got all these rules and all these regulations, and sometimes they're right, sometimes they're
discretion.
Wrong. But use discretion.
Exactly.
You know what? I'd go a step further. Use common sense. And my common sense shows
you know who won the round.
Who won the round.
Exactly.
So I'm going with common sense. Excuse me. Why?
Too many.
Sky.
Please, enough. But too many judges just fall prey to conforming to 10-8 the moment there's a knockdown.
Agreed. Stop. And I thought we would have a knockout tonight, and again, the hopes of that would be that Petrov will score a knockout here, which I believe that.
Yeah, I say stop, you stop.
I would believe he will. Give credit to Diaz, all the experience that he has.
Stop. Okay. This is the second warning on throwing him. Stop it, okay? You okay?
Jack Reese admonishing Diaz there.
You know, Diaz has been penalized before for low blows, been penalized for holding. He's been penalized behind the head, punching. So a little throwing, nothing big for him.
Joe and Teddy with you in Southern California. Absolutely beautiful night here in Corona. Will it be a beautiful night in the continued career momentum for Petr Petrov? Ran through the 135-pound Boxino tournament a year ago. He's been on the shelf for 11 months because he had a fight that he thought he was going to fight against Hank Lundy, drop out the day before when Lundy wasn't professional on the scale, couldn't make weight. And now an opportunity to shine here in prime time against Diaz.
I see two punches where Petrov can win this fight suddenly, just score a knockout. One is with the right hand in between one of those wide shots, or the right uppercut, either way, but the right hand for Petrov. The other is the left hook to the body. Petrov is starting to zero in on that left hook to Diaz's body.
Now, there was Diaz pushing him off to the side with that left hand there a moment ago. Remember, received a warning in that last round.
And remember, right at the end of the round, I just let us know that Diaz, no stranger to having points taken away or being, you know, penalized by the referee. Penalized for low blows, for holding, hitting behind the head, and doing a little pushing, as you said, tonight. He's a rough character, Diaz. He'll do it any way he can. I think Diaz is a little shop-worn with 53 fights. 34 years old.
16-year pro.
16-year pro. Been 10 rounds or better 19 times. A lot of mileage.
And as you said earlier, the two knockouts going back 4 fights and 3 fights ago.
Exactly. And I think it did take a little while for Petrov to get the car out of the driveway. Inactive 10.5 months last fight. But at the end of the day, Petrov, who's 32 years old, he just has a lot more left in the tank. He's a lot fresher. A lot fresher, I believe, than Diaz. One mistake, one thing that I could
both of you guys
maybe criticize Petrov for, who's winning this.
Here and here, stay off.
Jack Reese is earning his pay tonight.
Yeah, he's trying to keep control of something here before it gets out of control. There's that left hook to the body.
And you saw Diaz take that step back.
Stop.
Real sign that it had an impact.
You stop and you don't stop. Both of you guys
this might be a prelude to what I was talking about with Todd, about the Beaker-Stevenson fight.
Right.
An ugly fight, and that's exactly what Beaker's going to try to do, and that's what Diaz is trying to do. He's not as good as Petrov. He's got to make it ugly.
Stevenson's so one-dimensional. They struggle with things a bit there. Folks, you don't want to miss this next week. Teddy, we got some serious work next week. It's the Boxino tournament, where we're combining the heavyweight and the junior middleweight semis. So that means the final fours of Boxino, 4 8-round bouts in one night. That's happening next week with a 9 o'clock start time. I mean, that is a packed night of live fight action, tournament-style boxing next week. The semifinals of both 154-pounders and the heavyweights next week.
Oh, again, I said in the last round, Diaz is trying to do what Beaker's going to have to do tomorrow night against Stevenson. He's not as good. He's going to have to make it ugly, and he's doing a pretty good job. You know, this is no Mona Lisa when Diaz is involved. It's more like finger paints.
Yep. You just saw moments ago with the wide sweeping shots as he was squared up. There's going to be some recklessness here and some mucking it up on the inside. And see what happens here. Reese has already sent out a few warnings. That was low.
Bring him up. You okay? Listo? Come on, man. Bring him up.
I think Jack just wants to practice his Spanish.
Yeah, he was excited when he said, I got a Russian fighter who speaks Spanish. This will work.
Yeah, great. These guys got to watch their heads. Again, we said it very early, but they both come in there with their heads. And
sent back from the right hand was Diaz.
I don't see how this fight does not land or does not end in a knockout. For either one of them, I would favor, obviously, Petrov. I said it from the beginning, but Diaz has one opportunity. That left hook we talked about in the fight plan, he's got a chance if he doesn't just think about mauling and, you know, falling in there and pushing. If he would look, or someone in his corner would tell him to look for a left hook when Petrov throws that right bolo punch, he can land it. Because Petrov, just like we said in the fight plan, he will wind up that right hand and leave a clean alleyway for the left hook. So Petrov's just looking for a knockout. You know, you're not seeing any jabs. You're not seeing any boxing. You're seeing him come forward, set his feet, and he's looking for big shots. Body and head.
The right hand that came sweeping across at the back end of that exchange from Petrov. It's an up jab now.
Well, Petrov knows he's in the condition to really push the pedal to the floor. He's coming in here tonight as light as weight in at least 2 years. We don't have reported weights on him beyond that, so he's in good shape.
Diaz back in the corner. Petrov puts a left hand to the body.
Suéltelo, suéltelo, Diaz. Suéltelo. Stop.
No jabs. Just jumping in there.
No. Push down.
Nothing landed there.
It's not a knockdown.
His head, too.
As we come to the end of 4 here. Joe and Teddy here in Corona, California. 5th round coming your way in our main event. Gamaliel, Diaz, and Peter Petrov. Bernardo was just listening in on the corner of Diaz. Bernie, what'd you hear?
Antonio Flores was very clear. He told him, you did a little bit better this round, but you need to use your jab to keep him off of you.
Bernardo?
I think both these fighters are allergic to jabs.
Agreed.
They look for uppercuts.
Lead right uppercut there by Diaz on cue.
There's no jab.
Sweeping right hand from Petrov.
Forget about the jab. Petrov's walking forward, set on his feet though.
CompuBox has Diaz is landing only 4 jabs in total.
It's hard to land the jab when you're not looking at his forward.
Teddy's card is a clean sweep early for Petrov. Of course, you can always join in. FNFvote.com, 3 rounds to 1. Fans like Diaz for 1 round due to the knockdown.
Everything Diaz throws, again, he'll come forward, he'll lunge forward, he'll lean forward, and everything he throws is wide. Chances to punch down the middle with the right hand if you're Petrov, and there's chances for the uppercut as Diaz leans forward. And of course the left hook to the body that, for some reason, Petrov, after hurting Diaz early, has gone away from. This is like a power punch clinic. That's all that Petrov's looking for. I got a funny feeling Petrov's looking now to throw a right hand downstairs and maybe a left hook upstairs.
What makes you say that? Where's that coming from with your eye?
Because I see the opening for it, but I saw Petrov look for the right hand to the body. And I think that I saw that he realized that when he did that, he got Diaz to straighten up a little bit. And maybe the left hook to the head would follow. Makes some sense.
He's sitting there like a baseball on a tee.
Exactly. That's one reason maybe Diaz doesn't want to throw a jab. He threw a jab that time.
Stop.
Too slow, and the right hand of Petrov's got over. You know, jab is a great weapon, but it can be a dangerous weapon if you throw it too slow. Right hand counters can crash home.
Suéltelo. Diaz, suéltelo, polígono. Tiempo.
6th round coming up. As
No te pega las cuerdas.
Diaz's tournament continue to work away. The ends swell out. Trying to help things out around that right eye.
Te está robando la iniciativa. Tú primero. Quieres tirar un golpe y ya estuvo. No. Yo sé que puedes tirar más golpes. Come on.
Getting some more in the corner of Petr Petrov. Good start to a good sports weekend. Final 4 tomorrow. And Bika will be fighting as well. So he's giving you a potential upset brew in there. And swinging away to start round 6 here on Friday Night Fights. Remind me at some point, I have to get your final 4 predictions, Eddie. You know I always like to get you that on the record before the major sporting events.
Yes, sir. I think this is going to be the last round. That's just
Stop.
feeling I have. Especially if Petrov continues to aim that left hook to the body. It's there. No matter how game you are, you get hit in that liver. Your legs, well, they don't pay attention. They don't listen to the brain.
Moments ago, you saw the Diaz that you described earlier tonight. He was swinging with those wide shots. There's Petrov digging to the body with that left hand. Diaz trying to come back to the belt line.
Yeah, the way Diaz throws punches with that wideness to them, he figures if he's in the vicinity, if he's in the neighborhood of the belt line, it's good enough. You know, who's judging whether or not it's 2 inches low or 2 inches high? Wow, there's a jab by Petrov. Haven't seen that much tonight.
Diaz just falling in that time.
Diaz showing the heart of a former champion. Taking a lot of good shots tonight.
Stop.
Most of the fights for Diaz through his career now 54 fights. Most of his fights have been in Mexico. This is only his third fight out of 54 in the United States.
And yet went over and won the belt in Japan.
Yes, he did.
Stop.
Scheduled for 10 as we come to the end of 6. ESPN Friday Night Fights is presented by Corona Extra, who invites you to find your beach. And in part by Pennzoil Synthetics, make the switch to the next level performance. And by Verizon, America's largest and most reliable 4G LTE. We'll see the steady work by Petr Petrov, who is trying to keep that career momentum coming off the Boxino tournament win last year. Of course, the NCAA tournament comes to a finish this weekend. You know, my broadcast partner for college basketball, Sean Farnham, he's very good prognosticating. He says Duke 68-61, Kentucky 74-69 over Wisconsin. Teddy, you say otherwise.
Well, he's got it half right. I agree with him with Duke. Well-coached team. Just a nice, solid team. That coach is awful good, by the way. That goes a knockdown.
There it is. Just as you're getting ready to break down your prediction on Kentucky, Wisconsin. Knockdown score.
I'll keep everybody waiting with a bated breath.
¿Quieres seguir? Dame los guantes.
He's going to wipe him off. He's got 2 minutes and 20 seconds to try to survive Petr Petrov.
And try to give me the knockout and make me accurate with my opening, saying you will get a knockout tonight. And if he's going to do it, Petrov, well, he's going to do it with a right hand, I believe. He's looking for that right hand inside those wide shots. The problem with Petrov tonight, and there's not much of a problem, he's dominated this fight. He hasn't used the jab, he hasn't needed it, let's be honest. But he's looked for that right hand, which I thought he would so much, but it's been a crooked right hand. I don't know if he's getting influenced by Diaz, but it hasn't been a straight right hand. See? It's a crooked right hand, and that's a good example. And that's why,
had it been straight, he would have been in the pack.
Exactly.
Stop.
And that's why I think Diaz is actually still here, because Petrov's right hand has been crooked, not straight.
It's a little in between left hand there that had an effect, and then a right hand that went right down the middle to the body. There's a wide sweeping right hand from Petrov. He tried to dig in again with that left hand.
And again,
lunging left uppercut that time.
Yeah, he looks like Floyd Patterson there.
Yes.
Leaping left hook.
Completely.
Against Ingemar Johansson. Again, the one chance for Diaz, with all the heart that he has, he should look for that left hook when Petrov throws that right hand, that bolo punch right hand, and leaves himself a little open.
Stop. Switch him, man. You gotta switch him, man. All right? Box.
30 seconds of the round that started off south for Gamaliel Diaz.
Stop. Okay, go in that corner.
Yep, and remember, he was warned earlier.
This is the third or fourth time. Stand back there. You okay?
Jack lost
All right,
count.
need a minute. Take a minute. Take a minute.
Referee Jack Reese.
Fifth low blow. 1 point, low blow. 1 point, low
Point deduction,
blow.
as he says fifth low blow.
Relax, commentate. Keep the punches up. Stop the wrestling.
He's lost count.
He's about as accurate as Diaz is with the aiming of his punches.
Stop. Number 2, man. Number 2. Oops. You okay? All right. The round over?
How many is that? A baker's dozen?
Hey. Control this guy.
Does Diaz want to be DQ'd? I mean, this is what he does.
He does get pulled down, though. Look, see, he got pulled down a little bit by Petrov's left hand, pulled his head down, and maybe helped misdirect that punch a little bit, in all fairness. But like Jack said, you know, I got to laugh. You said it, you pointed out. He said that's 3 or 4, and then he said 5. So I figured...
May as well said 10 at that point.
Yeah, it's a baker's dozen of low blows by Diaz.
Bernardo, what did you hear in that corner?
Well, the first thing was Jack Reese coming over and telling Gamaliel Diaz, I don't want to disqualify you because I want you to get paid. And then the cornerman, Antonio Flores, asked Gamaliel, do you want me to stop this fight? Gamaliel was breathing hard, and he said, no, I want to continue. Then he said, go out there and do something because this is for your future.
And, you know, to your point, that's a good point, Joe, because sometimes a fight, especially, you know, a 34-year-old fighter with a lot of miles on the odometer, who's been around for almost 17 years, actually, 16 years and 11 months. You know, maybe the best way for him to go out, in his mind, in a fight that he's losing pretty badly, is to go out by getting disqualified instead of going out on his back.
Most notable example would be the late stages of the career of Mike Tyson.
Very notable. But Tyson never dealt with resistance, never dealt with pressure. Whenever he had resistance, a man that was resisting him, that was standing up to him, so to speak.
Well, it's classic bully syndrome.
Yeah, he had bully syndrome, that's for sure. He found a way out. You can make an argument that Tyson, as long as you brought it up, that every time he had a real fight, he lost. Every fight that the guy stood up to him and really contested him, didn't roll over for him or get knocked out by his power, he lost. Holyfield, Douglas,
Speaking of
Kevin McBride.
Speaking of the big bad bullies, you think Wisconsin stands up to Kentucky in the Final Four?
Yeah, I think Wisconsin pulls it off. I mean, they have two Larry Birds on that team. You know, those two players, they can hit them inside, they can hit them on the outside. Look, Kentucky's great. They're the favorite for a reason. But I'm going to say Wisconsin was out there with a real good game plan, and they execute. Yeah, they do a good job. And look, Kentucky does a heck of a job with all their guys, and they keep coming at you with waves.
Wait, hold on a second. What's the Pico Wisconsin parlay paying tomorrow?
I'll let you know if I hit it.
Double upset. No, I know that. There's no doubt about that.
It's a big one.
The world's going to know if you hit that.
It's a good one. We'll be going to a nice steak dinner.
Yeah.
Stop.
How are the restaurants in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania?
Bring your head off. Box.
Give Diaz credit. He just, you know, he's hanging around in there.
Not quite the action-packed round we saw 3 minutes ago. No knockdown. It was not a knockdown at the end of the 8th round, as Jack Reese immediately picked up on the fact that Petrov slipped and was tripped up there. Round 9, 2 to go here in our main event. Diaz and Petrov scheduled for 10.
Well, it looks like maybe I'm going to have given maybe false words to the audience. I hate to do that. At the opening, when I said you will get a knockdown, there's a step. I should have said you'll get a step on the feet, because Petrov's making a little bit of a habit of stepping on Diaz's foot now.
Stop.
But so far,
Guys, watch
I
the
have not
wrestling,
delivered
right?
on my knockout promise.
Box.
And I think it's still there, the possibility for Petrov, if he would throw that right hand straight instead of crooked inside one of those wide shots. In other words, time Diaz as he charges at him and punch in between.
We have had 2 knockdowns tonight, neither of which were all that brilliant, especially the first round knockdown scored by Diaz in a round that Petrov dominated subsequent to that. And then the 7th round, when Petrov scored a knockdown, and then Diaz, there's a cut there, when Diaz then had the low blows.
That's the cut that we talked about earlier, that Diaz has been cut by head class in 3 of his last 4 fights. And
Very, very small. Chiquito, but it's big.
now he's cut
All
again.
right? Box. I'll tell you in a minute, Mark.
Jack Reese does a good job. You know, he's handling a lot of stuff. He's handling a lot of stuff, and he's handling it the proper way.
You're not getting out. You need to
I
go.
don't think Diaz wants to continue.
Well, that's what I questioned in the 7th round.
¿Quieres
I think
seguir?
there's a reason for you to
No
question
bullshit, no
it.
mierda.
Is the way he's acting
Pelea.
out. And he's been cut plenty of times in his career. It's not like this is anything new to him.
Everybody stop. Stop. Listen. Time out, Mikey, time out. Come up here.
Let's listen in here.
Listen, he's got a cut this big, it's nothing. If he don't shut up and fight, I'm going to disqualify him, he don't get paid. Everybody's watching him on TV. This is where he wants to be represented. He's like crying. He's crying.
Gotta love Jack Reese. I love him.
You understand? Comprende? Does he got his mouthpiece?
I wish more referees just applied common sense.
Well, it is common
sense. Goes over, tells the corner, listen, the cut's meaningless right now. He's looking for a way out of the fight. Is this how he wants to represent himself on TV? Be a professional.
Exactly right.
Cut is not impairing his vision. Blood is not running into the eye.
Might be a good chance or good opportunity for uppercut from Petrov. Diaz really leaning forward, where that uppercut could be effective. There was an uppercut by Petrov.
Even with all of Diaz's antics, somehow we've navigated our way to the 10th and final round, as we will look at tonight's punch of the night, brought to you by Just for Men.
There's a left hook there. Big jumping left hook. That's a picture of a leaping left hook. I talked about it earlier that Floyd Patterson used to use that punch, used it well against Ingemar Johansson to become the first heavyweight ever to regain the heavyweight title. Petrov did a pretty good version of his own leaping left hook to score that knockdown, or at least to score that big punch.
Tira golpe, pisa, usar todo recto, ¿ok? ¿Ok? Sal con todo este. No llores, pelea. Concéntrate en lo que estás haciendo.
I didn't see this. I told the judge it's from a butt. We're crueling in a butt.
Ok, un cabezazo, ¿ok? ¿Ok? Ya, este es el último. Tira todo lo que tiene. All right? Todo lo que tiene. Enséñame los cojones que tiene usted.
16-year pro, former titleist Diaz gets off the stool for the 10th and final round against Russian-born and raised and Spanish-residing Petr Petrov. Boxino lightweight tournament winner from a year ago has been anxious to get back out and have his 2015 debut.
See, again, it seems like a little thing now. It's not a little thing. Petrov throws that right hand crooked. He throws it with a little bit of a loop, a little bit of a bend. Going to make that argument again, not just to make myself right. I know I can be wrong, and there's been no knockout tonight. But if Petrov had thrown that right hand straight, maybe. But then again, we don't live by maybes. Just watch Petrov when he loads up on that right hand. He throws it a little round, and it doesn't land quite the way it would if it was straight.
Stop. No more punching. Listen up. Box.
Diaz is really testing the patience of Jack Reese. A right hand to the body.
Every once in a while, Petrov, he did it earlier, we showed it. He throws that throwaway punch, that distracting punch, where he'll move his left hand out to the side to try to get the eyes of Diaz to go with that left hand and then shoot the right hand down the middle. There's that
bolo right there as he wound up that right hand against Diaz.
See, that was the best shot for Diaz to step in when that bolo punch came, but Diaz missed. Well, he missed the boat on it. I think that's a dangerous punch for Petrov. You know, he hasn't paid a price tonight for it, but that's a dangerous punch the way he loads up with that right uppercut. Just takes a little too long to get there.
Cut from Diaz that time on the inside.
Dominating fight for Petrov, but no knockout.
Fight had everything else, though, didn't it? Especially a lot of interaction needed from referee Jack Reese with some of the antics we saw. Petrov getting ready for win number 36 to be announced. The Bolo punch was revealed, Teddy. Here it is, wind it up as we will take it a break and get ready to hear from the judges. Joe and Teddy wrapping up Peter Petrov and Gamaliel Diaz. As Petrov was able to get to him late in the first round, have steady work, score that knockdown in the 7th round.
And here it is, a big left hook, leaping left hook, a la Floyd Patterson, right on the button. Scores a knockdown, big round for him, because he also got a point taken away, Diaz. So it wound up being a 10-7 round.
Well, let's look at your scorecard. And there it is, the 7th round that stands out for a dominating scorecard for Petrov. Fans at home saw it 9 rounds to 1. As for the judges here, here's Sweet Baby Ray Flores.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 10 rounds, we go to the scorecards. Here are your score totals. Judge at ringside, Max Gulucum, has the bout 98 to 89, and judges Jerry Gon 2 and Fernando Villarreal are in the coordinates 97 to 90, all for your winner by unanimous decision. And still the NABA and NABO lightweight champion, Peter Diaz.